Hi, this is Dr. Cairns. Welcome to week 3 of High Performance People Management. I'm just really enjoying this class. I can start to see a sense of community developing, and I'm enjoying watching you learn and develop. So thanks for making this a pleasurable time. I just want to remind everybody I have a little index card with all your names on it, and we're praying that God will amaze you this semester in some area of your life, whether that's personally, professionally, spiritually, or all the above. I'm also enjoying the international flair in our class, several international students, and thank you, Allison, for giving us a lesson in Mandarin. I wish I could pronounce the word, but I really like the fact that it's live a hopeful life. So thank you for sharing that with us. I want to give a little shout out to the conversations that you were having this week in the discussion of Rango Part 2. And first of all, I just want to give you a couple tips perhaps to think about, especially when you're responding to different questions and as you're reading each other's posts, that you might want to consider looking at those that have answered the same questions as you and seeing what their point of view is, and perhaps considering getting a dialogue going if there's some similarities or differences in terms of how you see things. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the observations that several of you made on several different points. In particular, Matthew, Cynthia, and Lewis, you reached out and gave a stab at the equity theory and expectancy theory elements as it related to this experience here at the City of Dirt and the people pursuing water as being equitable and what should they do. And as we know from Maslow's theory of hierarchy, theory of need, as well as Hertzberg's theory, our physiological needs, food, water, and shelter, become very tantamount to obviously our survival. So how are we equitable in applying that as we look at this particular story? And then also one aspect that I really enjoy, and one of my favorite quotes, whether it's groupthink or group cohesiveness, you might want to think about that. But when Rango is confronted with the missing water and they say, well, what should we do? And he says, let's ride. And everybody jumps on their pheasant and starts heading out in the desert. And as they're out there riding, one of the guys who's riding next to Rango turns to him and says, Rango, where are we going? And Rango looks at him with this quizzical look on his face like, that's a great question. I don't know. And that's one of the things that sometimes happens in leadership. There's actually a poem out, we'll know where we're going when we get there. And sometimes leaders embark without really knowing the direction that they're going and hoping to find their way. And sometimes that works out, and other times it's helpful to plan ahead of where we're going. So that's one of my favorite things. I want to say, too, effective communication, the discussion there, and in particular, Eric Barrera made a comment about Rango being rather articulate. And it made me stop and think that, we really do look at some of our leaders and how well they're able to communicate with us by how well they actually speak. I worked for President Bush under his administration as the head of human capital for Homeland Security. And he wasn't necessarily the most articulate of speakers. And then I also worked under President Obama, who was very articulate even today as an effective communicator. So it's important that you're able to speak fluently as well as coherently. That's an important aspect of communication. And then Brigham mentioned, though, it's also important to know your audience and relate to them, especially with maybe a little southern drawl that Rango had, but it really points out the idea that's mentioned in your text regarding semantics and jargon and being able to communicate in a fashion that your audience can relate to is also an important aspect. And then Eric Walker mentioned something that really came about in terms of storytelling. And actually, great leaders are able to tell stories and do them well, but also use metaphors when they're communicating. So we have Eric Barrera with the message that is also mentioned in the information processing element, communication processing. And I want to close this aspect out because Eric shows us the need for message and being able to have it being coherent and articulate in terms of being able to communicate that. And then Eric Walker with the storyteller really relates to symbols and using those and metaphors again to help that message resonate with the viewers or the listeners. And then also Brigham in terms of talking about using the jargon. And then Eunice kind of sums it up for me in terms of being able to speak confidently. And sometimes that may get lost a little bit, but when you're delivering a message, you really need to be confident about that message. And if there's one thing that Rango doesn't lack is confidence. And so whether that's misplaced or not, we could say, but we really want to be confident when it comes to communicating. And I just want to mention one other aspect of in your discussions when you looked at attitude. And I applaud those of you that took that question on because it can be a little bit complex and not something that we necessarily think about. But I would have managers come to me and say, so-and-so in my department, they just have a bad attitude. And they would just say, I want to do an action or some sort of thing. And my response to them would be, well, I can't really address attitude, but I can address behaviors. What is it how their behaviors are? And that's what the text talks about in terms of individual attitudes. It helps you to identify looking at how it's effective, how the cognitive areas affect behavior, and then also intention affects behavior. And we hear a lot and see a lot about intention. So now when you're approached or you're thinking about that person has a bad attitude, you can look at, well, what is it about their behavior and which one of these maybe three aspects is contributing to that? And now you have a way to address it. So really great discussion in Rango Part 2. Now it's on to Rango the conclusion. And so I trust that you'll enjoy that. The other piece that I want to encourage you is to get your posts in no later than Thursday of the week so you have time to interact with each other and see your comments as well. So thank you for a great discussion. So there's more things to look at in my lecture for this week, more details about things coming up that you need to be aware of, and some things that you'll be studying this week. And I just want to encourage you a little bit more. Also, Joshua did mention in terms of how this week's faith reading related to the materials, and you're continuing that discussion with the Christian atheists, and I'm glad the connectivity, and even more as we get into it, you get more adjusted to what to look for and what to think about, and so your critical thinking and your reflections are phenomenal. Keep copies of those reflections for yourself as well. So if you have any questions or concerns about anything, please let me know. Visit me in my virtual office hours every Tuesday from noon to 1. No appointment necessary, but as you know, you can reach me via text or email, and I'll respond to you as quickly as possible. So with that, have a blessed week.